Good? Okay, so thank you very much for taking time out of everyone's very busy schedule to come out this evening. I believe in transparency to the best of my ability. I believe in sharing information. Information shared is making us all better. So I'm not trying to keep any secrets. I want to make sure that you all know what's going on. For those that are returning, it's going to look different than it has maybe last year. And for those of you that are just joining us, it's going to look different, right? So I'm going to start by introducing my coaches that are going to help me this year, and then I'll talk about myself a little bit. And so coaches, if you would, just please come on up here, introduce yourself. I asked them not to be long-winded, just simply because I'm trying to keep this to an hour. And what position you're coaching.
Hello, Sean Shubin, defensive line coach.
Also JV head coach.
Coach Brian, I'll be coaching offensive linemen and helping out with JV offense.
Yeah, he's going to be offensive coordinator for JV.
Jeff Silva, quarterbacks and receivers.
Okay, mainly on the varsity. Thank you, gentlemen. Okay, so again, first thing that you'll notice is our coaches have positions assigned to them. It's much easier to be excellent in something if you know what your lane is, and you can kind of focus on an area instead of trying to bounce all over the place and do everything. Nothing gets done to the best of your ability, right? So we try to hone in on people's skills, their experience, and their knowledge, put them in a place where they're going to be successful and where they're going to help the team. The same thing is said with the players. So my name's Josh Whiting. Very quickly, a little bit about myself. I am still in the military. I retire next year. I won't go too in depth. So I am a minister. I've served in youth ministry before. I've been blessed to do that. I love football, right? I played football in high school all the way through. I was blessed enough to get to play a little bit in college before I got hurt, and I never stopped loving football. I never attended a football game until my son started playing again. That's how much I love football. Most of you who love sports can relate to that. If you played and you can't play anymore, you tend to kind of walk away from that thing. So last year, how did I get involved with Eagles? Very simply, I showed up to spring practice, much like some of you did this year. I sat there on the side and my wife said, "How long before you get engaged?" Right? Because I'm a great sideline coach. And so there was a couple of things that were going on. I saw that maybe there was a hand that could be lended, so I got up and lent a hand. And so on and so forth mid-season. Ended up kind of taking over the role as the head coach, and then off-season was actually interviewed and accepted for the head coach position, which, by the way, FYI, for anybody who's watching online, is not paid. So if you're going to hit me up and ask me for a job, I don't get paid, so none of my assistants get paid, so most people don't call after that. All right, so I have an agenda tonight that we're going to talk through. I'm going to let you see my agenda, right? So this is my talking points. The first thing I want to cover is the conference. Okay, so we do play in a conference. The conference we play in is called the SIFA Conference, S-I-F-A. It is made up of teams here in Georgia and in South Carolina, okay? That conference at the end of every season gets together. The chair is Tim Humans. He is the head coach for PAC football. Most of you know who PAC is, out of Columbia, South Carolina. He is the chair for our conference for one more year. It comes up to a vote again next year, so his position may change. However, we had our meeting this year, and every year the whole intent of the meeting at the end of the offseason is to try to make the conference better, right? We're trying to kind of make sure if we come across a snag or an issue that gets addressed, we kind of set that in the offseason and we move things forward. So some of the things that you guys need to know from our conference meeting, again, this is transparency. All right, 2 new teams in our conference this year. Start there. So the first new team that we'll talk about is Victory Baptist, right across the river. They've got a team. I've already talked to their head coach. I went and had lunch with him. Fantastic fella. Really looking forward to what he's going to put together this year. We will play Victory twice, and I'll talk to you about why that's kind of an anomaly. Red Rose Academy. They're out of Lancaster, South Carolina. That's a drive. Most of you may know where that is. I didn't. I had to Google that. When I Googled it, turns out it's closer to North Carolina than it is to South Carolina, so it's a drive, 2.5 hours. Good news is we will never play away in Lancaster and away in Coastal in the same year, right? Because I got to drive that drive too. So you'll never have 2.5 hours to Coastal and 2.5 hours to Lancaster in the same year. We'll rotate those things. The only change to that may be if there's a championship game we're playing in. right? Because where the championship is played rotates. Okay, so speaking of championships, we've changed the playoffs, okay? So we added some teams, so we kind of have to change some things a little bit. You can see there my bullet point number 2. We'll play each conference team once for a playoff seeding, and the top 4 teams at the end of the year, they make the playoffs. Now, what does that look like? Basically, we have a full 10-game schedule, okay? But we are only playing our conference opponents once, with the exception of victory, and that's because they're right across the road, okay? So it's an easy game for both of us. We both agreed to play it, but it will not count against our conference record. So at the end of the year, let's say we get to the end of the year, and 2 teams have an identical conference record, and we're trying to seed those teams. After we look at their conference record, we'll then look at their overall record to help seed them. Does that make sense? Okay. If their overall record is identical as well, we are going to settle it as democratically as possible with a coin flip. Okay? Now, why is that important? I will tell you exactly why that's important. Because prior to that change, the tiebreaker was point differentials. Okay? Does everybody understand what a point differential is? Great, I got some no's. All right, point differential means that you look how many points you scored in that year versus how many points were scored against you. And you measure those 2 teams up. So as you can imagine, if I was playing a team that maybe wasn't so good and I knew that I had to beat another team's score in order to get in the playoffs, what may I do to that team that's not so good? Run up the score, right? And that's not the sportsmanship we're looking for in our conference. That's why we got rid of that rule and we went to a coin flip. Fair enough? Okay. I wanted to be absolutely candid on that because if it gets down to the end of the year and we lose a coin flip and we don't go to the playoffs, just know that's all part of the game. Okay? All right, another change. Practice is allowed to start 6 weeks prior to game 0. Okay? 6 weeks prior to game 0. So that's a new rule change, which is awesome for me as the head coach because that means I get an extra week of practice. So what's that going to look like? It's going to look like practice will actually start. Fall practice starts that very last week of June. That first Monday of the last week of June, I probably said that very confusing way, but that last week of June, that Monday, fall practice starts. Fall practice means that we are in helmets and shoulder pads. My alarm's going to keep going off because I'm like super rigid, and so that means that we're supposed to transition to a different drill in practice. So when you hear that, just know that's how scheduled I am. So with that being said, that first week, or that Monday of the last week of June, that's our first fall practice. We'll practice that week. Now, when I say we practice that week, we will not practice on Wednesdays. Okay? So first and foremost, this is a Christ-centered organization. I am a Christ-centered coach. That's more important to me by far than winning or losing. So I will never make an athlete choose between a religious service and sports. I will choose for them. It's a religious service. Okay? So we will not practice on Wednesdays, which is very, very important to me. So that first, or the last week of June rather, we'll have practice. The first week of July, that July 4th week, that whole week, there is no practice. Okay? That's because I know many of you travel, and I can put it all on you, but my daughter's actually getting married that week, so I'll be traveling, so it's very convenient just to not have practice that week. Okay, so no practice that week. The second week of July, when we come back on that Monday, we will not stop playing football until after the championship game. Note my confidence. Okay? So we will have football being played in some way, shape, or form from the second week of July until probably close to Thanksgiving. Okay? If the boys do what they can and should do. Fair enough? That's football. Okay? Any questions about that? I'm breezing through. Very good. All right, initiation of conference dues. This is important. So when you guys see me on social media and I'm like, we need sponsors. We need sponsors. We need to get out there and ask people to support Eagles. There's plenty of people who love to support good organizations, and we should be asking them for that. People will throw their money all kinds of places. Why not throw it to us, right? Part of that is because, again, as our conference start to legitimize, we're trying to do things like a conference banner, right? If you win the conference championship, you get a banner. They did that the last couple of years. The team that won happened to be Pack. Pack bought their own banners, okay, out of team funds. Last year we did first team and second team all conference patches. I have those tonight, by the way. Those patches came out of each team's fund, right? So we had to pay for those. In the future, that's what the dues are for. Does that make sense? So the dues are actually a good thing. It really helps us out. All right, standard ticket prices. This is kind of important. I know some of you had a kerfuffle last year when you were up at PAC, and some people got charged one thing, some people got charged another, okay? We were aware of that. We had great discussion about that as a coaches, and so what we did was we set ticket prices. Now, I will be honest with you. The reason that we set the prices where we were was for the most expensive teams to cover their cost. Fair enough? And Augusta Eagles is one of the most expensive teams because we have to rent Lions Field every time we play a game, okay? Again, why do we need sponsorships, right? So taking that into effect, you see the prices right there. They're also on the bottom of the game schedules that are on Facebook and have been sent out. Now, one key note, when you see like single game and it says $30 family max, if you've got 11 people, mom, dad, kids, 11, the most you'll pay is 30 bucks, okay? When we're talking about family, understand that means like family, not like Ani down from Chicago or, you know, my cousin from 7 times removed. Like, that's not family, right? We're talking about like family. So that's the prices for this year. Fair enough? That way we can kind of budget that. And I'll have a caveat to that here in just a second. Another important note. So last year, some of us know, and I won't name the team, but there was a team that we played, and we played them close a couple of times. And then when we played them in the playoffs, there were several new faces, right? Which made them a little bit more competitive than we were able to handle at the time. Fair enough, okay? With that being said, that was taken into consideration, and this year there's a deadline for adding to our roster, okay? So you'll see the deadline is 1 September. Any player after 1 September who joins a roster is not eligible for any conference game. Understand? So for all you players that have friends that are dragging their feet about getting registered and joining the Eagles, when we get to 1 September, if they come out and they're like, hey, I really want to play, they can come out. I will let them practice. They can certainly pay the dues. I will appreciate that. But they will never play in a game against a conference opponent because that's one of the rules. If we play them, we forfeit. Does that make sense? So it is very, very important that people, like Pastor said, we're doing everything earlier. The conference is doing the same thing. Another rule. This actually was not like a new rule. It's modified a little bit. There is a dress limit on how many players can be standing on the sidelines for a game. That player limit is 30, as you can see. Now what that means for me as the head varsity coach, right? On Friday night, I can have no more than 30 players in pads, helmets, and uniform, okay? That's it, that's my max, 30, okay? Now, I would love for that to become an issue. It's not an issue yet, okay? Right now I could dress every varsity and every JV player that we have out for spring ball and still not hit my 30 limit, okay? But why is that important? Well, because as we get to where we're building and we're growing, because I believe that we are, the time may come where a player who, you know, sometimes plays varsity but primarily plays JV may be told like, hey, you're not dressing tonight. Not that they did anything wrong. It may be because I have a varsity player who's injured and I need to pull up another JV player to replace them. Does that make sense? Okay. So there's some give and take there. If there's questions about that, and there's questions about playing time, why is somebody not getting the playing time I think they should get, whatever. We're going to talk about a little bit that later, but I would like to think that our young men have the fortitude to come ask that question. Coach, why am I not playing? And I have the absolute wherewithal to tell you exactly why, okay? And then if that can be intimidating, I understand that. I have a son myself, right? And sometimes as a parent, I will tell my son, you need to take the lead, but I'll be right back here. So again, if a parent wants to know, that's perfectly fine, and I'll answer those questions, but I would like to, as we're trying to grow and develop these young men, that's something we're trying to grow and develop them. If they think that there's something going on, come talk to the coach. If they got a question, come ask the coach. If we as parents continue to intervene, at some point, like I got an 18-year-old daughter who's out there, went to her first doctor's appointment, is like, Mom, I don't know what to do. She's calling her mom on the phone, like, what do I say to the doctor, right? Because maybe we didn't prepare her for that, right? So that's kind of what I'm talking about. All right, another rule change for the conference. 40-point lead will equal a running clock, period, across the board. Okay, it doesn't matter when the 40-point lead happens. If it's in the first quarter, we're up by 40, the whole rest of the game is a running clock. Now, last year, some of you may remember when we played Orangeburg, at halftime, they went to an 8-minute game clock. Anybody remember that? Mm-hmm. I do, okay? We will not do that anymore, right? And there's a reason for that. That happened to several teams last year where they shortened the games, and believe it or not, when you shorten a game, it impacts things like concessions. And if you spend money on concessions and then you have to throw a bunch of stuff away because people suddenly got their night shortened by an hour, that changes a lot for a team, okay? So across the conference, we all agreed we will not deviate from our current clock, okay? But we will run the clock. Now, there is some coaches' agreement things that may happen, you may see happen. If we're up on a team substantially, there will be a meeting at halftime between the head coaches, okay? The head coaches are going to discuss the way forward. So let's say that the Eagles are the team that's up. I will go out there and I will discuss with that coach me pulling certain players, okay? Or in the sense of what we have with numbers, like what we had last year, there were times where I told a coach, listen, I'm not going to have him play his primary position, but he's still got to be on the field because otherwise I ain't got enough folks. Does that make sense? So again, if you see, that score deviates, there's a meeting at halftime, and all of a sudden your son's not playing where you think they should be playing, and you're like, what happened? That's probably what happened. If you have a question, I'm pretty into the game. So if you holler at me during the game, I'm into the game. I probably won't even hear you, right? But if you talk to me after the game, I'll be happy to try to answer those questions, right? All right, and lastly, so you guys know where we'll be playing the championship game this year, Orangeburg hosts, okay? And the way that works is it rotates. Every year in the conference, it rotates who hosts it, and this year it just happens to be at Orangeburg. Any questions on any of the conference changes, rules, updates, team additions, anything? You guys are making this too easy. Okay. Before I talk about player contract, let's keep going. So more early and more often, right? Please note that this year the team photo and individual photos will be done on 18 August at the Lorenz game. Okay? I'm doing that for multiple reasons, partially because it's nice for you guys to have your photos of your athletes before the end of the season. That's one reason. Another reason is I have some players who do have interest in trying to play at another level, and having that actual team photo, having them in their uniform photo is something that college coaches ask for, believe it or not. So me having that makes life a little bit easier. So we're gonna do that earlier. So again, I will tell you, I don't want to say rigid because that's such a bad term, right? But I spent almost 20 years in the military, so please understand what that means, right? If I say we're going to do something at a certain time, I'm going to start generally at that time with very little deviation to the right or the left, okay? So making sure that we're on time and ready to go for all things is very, very important, especially that night. That is our first home game, by the way. So I've already started talking to the cheerleader coach. I am encouraging this to be a really big game, right? So I'm really trying to encourage, and this is just me, and I'll be completely transparent. So last year, kind of looking around and kind of being the first year in Eagles, what I noticed is like we have football, and you have this sport, and you have that sport, and you have this sport, and they all do great things, right? But we're all Eagles. Okay? And so what I would love to see is when we look up in the stands, I can go, look at all those cross-country runners up there. Look at all those golfers up there. Look at all those track people up there. Look at all those basketball players, volleyball players, whatever up there. And when they have games, when they have stuff going on, we support them too. We've already started that this year. Most of you probably kind of saw me throwing that stuff up on social media. So that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to get that first home game to be really kind of something. That's our home opener, right? We should be dressed in blue and white. We should be out there with big noisy cowbells. making lots and lots of noise, drinking water because it's gonna be hot, but having a great time, right? Really supporting our Eagles, and I would like to see a lot of student athletes out there. We're working to try to have some fun to do that. So put that on your calendar, and even if your kid doesn't end up playing, come on out, right? That's gonna be very, very important to support. So moving on, team practice pack. So this is kind of a dream for me, right? And I understand that cost is a very real thing because my kid doesn't play for free either. We have to register my son, we have to buy his pads, his cleats, everything same as everybody else. So I know that cost adds up. But as a coach, as a military person, I understand the value and the connection that happens when a team looks, acts, and moves alike, right? And on Friday night, that's great. But what I would love to get to is where Thursday, our practice before our Friday night game, we are all in the same uniform. A t-shirt like this and some shorts that have an eagle on them, and we show up and we practice looking like a team. Now, that may not happen this year, maybe not, but just know in the future that's the direction we're trying to go. Okay? I'm working very hard on that. So that's a vision thing. 5 versus 5 tournament. It talks about Victory. Victory is, again, going to be a new team, so we're going to help them be competitive a little bit. We are going to play a 5 versus 5 football tournament against them in May. I'm confirming the dates, and we will have those dates probably by next week. Okay? What that's going to look like, we'll host it right here. We'll start Friday. It'll be a Friday night, evening time frame. We will put together 2 varsity teams from the Eagles and 1 JV team from the Eagles. Okay? Our 2 varsity teams will play their 2 varsity teams, and then the winners will play each other for a championship, quote unquote. JV will play each other for a who's gonna win. Okay? Should be a pretty good time. Lots of fun, bring some blankets, lots of water, might be warm, but hopefully people will come out and watch that too. So far, any questions? Yes, Sam.
So, you mentioned that there would be 5 on 5, right? So will there be no linemen?
There will be a center.
But you won't be blocking or doing anything at all?
Nope. It's primarily for the skills players, yes. Will my lineman be out there? Sure. Do you want to play tight end maybe someday? You don't? He doesn't like catching. Okay. All right. Well, that's fine. Come out and coach with me. Okay? Come out, stay on the sidelines and coach with me. Learn the plays. There's something for everybody to do. If you want to play defense, it's a good way to brush up on some coverage for defense. All right. Recruitment examples, again, so I'm not going to spend a ton of time here because I'm going to transition over into the Google Classroom in a second and show you all kind of what that looks like. But there are some players that have talked to me, some parents that have talked to me and said, okay, coach, so what does it look like to try to get my athlete to play in college? And the easy answer is, I've talked to tons of colleges this whole off season, made lots of connections with great coaches, and the bottom line is, we can probably get every athlete on the Eagles to play in a college somewhere if you're willing to pay for it. Right? Now, if you want a scholarship, that's a whole nother game. Okay? Scholarship athletes are something very unique. That is not an everybody thing. That's maybe the top 10% across the board. And when I say the top 10%, what that means, athletes, listen to me. If you want to be a scholarship athlete, it starts your freshman year, and your GPA better be above 3.5 straight across. If it is less than 3.5, you will not get a scholarship, almost guaranteed. Fair enough? So start there. Your GPA, 3.5, or you're not going to do it. From there are some things that we can do. Now, if you come across one of these people out there that say, pay me $600 and I'll get your kid recruited, please don't pay them $600. Donate that money to the Eagles, okay? Because they're going to do exactly what I'm going to help your kid do, exactly what I'm going to do, which is they're going to create a social media account for your kid. They're going to post their game film and their stats, and that's all they're going to do. That's it. That's how it's done, okay? It's pretty much all done through Twitter, okay? And I'll kind of show you what that looks like. But again, that's something that if you are a parent, and I know because my son has no social media, right? So that can be problematic. Well, my son has no social media. That's something that can absolutely be managed by the parent because it is a professional account. It is not a I liked my friend's dinner from last night account. The only thing on that account is athletics and academics. That's it. Okay? This is my GPA, this is my finals test, this is what I'm doing in the weight room, I'm the state whatever in track, I've done this in football. That's what that account is. And I can show you how to set that up because, again, it's a professional account and it's very structured on how it's done. So I'll move on from that. If you want to talk more about that, see me offline and I'll talk individually. Max Preps. Who knows about Max Preps? Parents specifically. Okay, so Max Preps is a great tool that last year when I jumped in, I was like, man, this is a really awesome service that we're not really using, okay? So we're using it, okay? Our roster will be in Max Preps. Our stats will be in Max Preps. Our photos will be in Max Preps. Why? Because that's the next area that college coaches go to check on athletes, okay? So if you go to Max Preps and you can look at it, you can see our schedule, you can see our win-loss record, it's all there. It's there for the whole world to see. And then as the games happen, usually Friday night a game happens, Saturday I get up, if it's a win, I'm happy. If it's a loss, it takes me a little while to watch game film, but I'll watch game film, I'll do my stat card, I'll put it all in Max Preps, and then I'll have that done. So pretty much by a Sunday afternoon, you can note in my sun rush for 150 yards or 50 yards, right? That'll be there for you. I do that pretty quickly. So Max Preps is a great tool. I'm throwing that out there. There's different accounts. There's basically a public account, which is what you all will have, and then there's admin accounts, which a couple of us have that allows us to edit things. So please be aware of that. All right, the last thing I want to talk about on here, this is very important to me, is supplements and pre-workouts. So I'm going to make this as absolutely perfectly clear as possible, okay? I have absolutely zero reason for any athlete to be in high school to be on supplements or pre-workout, period. Zero, none, okay? And I will tell you why. So my job as a criminal investigator for the Army, that's what I've done for a very long time. As part of that, I have worked every death on every installation I've ever been at, okay? Several of those installations have had deaths of young service members between the ages of 19 and 21 who are out conducting PT, physical training, and they die. No reason, okay? So we do an autopsy. I have attended those autopsies. When we get in there and we do the autopsy and we get to the heart, what do you think we find? That the heart was under so much stress that literally the valves had expanded so much because what those supplements do is they thin your blood, okay? They help pump that blood faster. They get that blood pressure really, really high. That's why your face tingles and your ears tingle and your face gets red. They get your blood pressure way, way up, and then your heart can't take it. Now, it's a matter of time. That's all it is, and I'm just being honest, okay? You may take it 20 times and never have a problem. You may take it twice and keel over. Not on my field, okay? So to be perfectly clear, if you come up to practice and you're drinking a pre-workout, you will watch practice with your ears tingling and your face all red, okay? There is no pre-workouts to be used or to be taken prior to a game or prior to a practice. It's too hot in Georgia. We do it too hard. The way we condition is you don't need anything to thin your blood. I'll do that for you, okay? So please, 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 parents, that's my rule. Now, if you've got a 19-year-old or an 18-year-old and they're going to make their decisions, I can't control those decisions. But on the football field, I can mitigate risk, and that's what I'm doing, okay? So that would be my decision. So that's pretty much where I stand on that. Now, when I talk about supplements, if you're like, Coach, my kid takes a Flintstone vitamin, does that mean he can't play? No, right? There are some supplements that are vitamins, those kind of things, that's one thing. When I'm talking about supplements, I'm talking about you go down to GNC and you go, what's going to help me get big? And they pull out this animal pack. That's literally what they're called. If you've ever seen them, animal pack. And they hand them to you and there's like 17 pills in there. You have no idea what you're taking. That's what I'm talking about when I say supplements. Okay? So we don't need any of that. We won't have any of that. And we won't have any issues. Any questions on that?
Would you say branched chain amino acids would be a supplement?
Your dad and I have already talked about that one, and amino acids are great for recovery, so no, I don't have a problem with amino acids.
If you eat meat, you're just wasting your money. Branched chain amino acids are in the meat you eat, and you're just throwing dollars away.
Okay, I'm doing pretty well. I know I'm going fast. Any questions up to this point? All right. I want to transition and talk about Google Classroom a little bit because this is a great tool. So this off season, I've spent a lot of time networking, like I said, with college coaches, but also sitting in on podcasts, sitting on online coaches clinics and conferences, and just really trying to figure out how to do better, right? Like, why not try to improve? So that's what I've pretty much done all off season. And what I found out, this may astound some of you, maybe not, is that on average, if you're a public school, for example, every public school in South Carolina that's at least a 3A school or bigger has at least 1 hour a day of an elective called football. True story. Where the head coach or the other coaches teach football for 1 hour a day to each of their athletes. Now, they have another hour a day, which is labeled body mechanics or weightlifting or health or something like that, where they take them to the gym and they work out. So 2 hours on a public school day of an 8-hour day, minus lunch and everything else, is spent working on football before they ever get to a 2-hour practice, right? So they get 4 hours a day of football. I get 2 hours a day. They go 5 days a week. We go 4, 3 when game starts, right? So talking to other coaches, they could not believe that we do what we do. Absolutely couldn't believe it. Could not believe it. They're like, how do you teach your kids football, right? How do you teach them what a penalty is? How do you teach them the nuances of the game? How do you go in depth with all of it? And I said, well, bottom line, we don't, right? So I started looking for creative means, and I went back to, well, when COVID happened. When COVID happened, this is how the military started doing a bunch of stuff. They started putting everything on Google Classroom. We started doing a lot of training on Google Classroom. We started working through it. You could go in, you can communicate with people, you can do assignments, you can answer questions. There's lots of cool things you can do, and it's totally free, okay? So I thought, if it can work for the Army, it could probably work for us. And I built a Google Classroom. So this is what it looks like. If you navigate into Google Classroom, you do need a code. That's the code right there to get in, okay? I sure can. It's, you want it phonetically or just regular? Just kidding. 3Y K Y V N as in November P. Good to go? Okay. Nailed it. All right. So you should come to a front page like this. Now you can open this on the app too, and it looks a little bit different. We all know sometimes desktop's better. And again, in Google Classroom, desktop is a little bit better. When you click on classwork, you will see that the coaches have uploaded tons of information, okay? And by tons, I mean lots of information, okay? Now, what is the purpose of this? What is the idea behind this? Well, if you kind of look, I've tried to divide this down into sections and subsections of things that make sense. So let's say I have never played football a day in my life, and that's intimidating. I'm going to join a football team, but I've literally never played. So you can come into Google Classroom and you can make yourself a little bit smarter so you don't have to worry about coming out and coach using something that you don't know because you know what a TD is. Does that make sense? So I really built this thinking about our younger athletes, thinking about, you know, those kids that maybe are intimidated by something new. There's nobody to sit down with them for a 1 hour block in a classroom and say, hey, this is what these terms mean. They're all right there. And I promise you that even as parents, if you want to be a better football junkie, for lack of a better term, there's a lot of information in here for you too. Okay? So that's one example. Each position is broke down and explained. But there's also a section in here that the coaches have already gone in, a couple of us have, and put some notes. So like if I was a player, right, and again I told you that I'm a cop for the military, so I'll tell you one of the things that I do is I'm always creeping on people, right? Every single one of the players, as soon as your name signs up, I go find you on social media, I go find out what you're doing, I figure out what church you're going to, who your friends are, what your grade is, all the information I can find, the TikTok videos that you're liking, all that stuff. I go find it all, okay? That's the very first thing I do. So if I was a player coming in and I was going to play for a guy like me, and I saw coach's notes, I'd want to know what this guy's all about, right? So this is what this guy's all about. Summarize the best I can, okay? My expectations, very clearly, and then I broke down Eagles, because again, my military runs deep. And we love our acronyms. Okay? So what does EAGLE stand for? Who knew that was in there? Athletes? 3, 4 of you? And 1 parent? Okay? Give kudos to the parent. All right? Who knew that we had an acronym for Eagles? You might want to know it before you show up to fall practice. Okay? Very, very important. Because this is the stuff that I look for when we talk about character, and I'm looking for a Christ-like character in athletes. This is the stuff that I'm looking for. I lay it out for you. I will never ever impose an expectation that I don't make very clear on what that expectation is. Okay? So we're not going to dive in there too deep. But then, let's get past that. I've got lots of fun stuff in here. Let's go defensive line. Because athletes don't like to read, right? I got it. We've got videos, and they're training videos. Now, every video that's posted, the coaches watch first. We make sure that there's not a video of the language. The one thing that I can't 100% control is the ads, because you see it's on YouTube, right? So I can't control ads. I will be completely candid about that. But the videos that are posted, we screen them for language. We screen them for all that stuff. Because there's some videos out there I'd love to post, but I won't support the language, right? So that's just the way that goes. But they can watch videos. So that way, before they show up to Coach Shubin's defensive line drills, they can watch a video and see the pros do it. They can watch a video and see somebody else do it and kind of walk them through it. Now, why did I pick tonight to lay all this out? Why did I want a parent-player meeting tonight? Because you have a summer to sit and comb through this. There is a lot of stuff here, right? But if you know what kind of position you're generally going to be, and you watch each of these videos 2 or 3 times, you come out to fall practice. Now when the coach is trying to teach you a concept, it's much easier for us to, because you have a baseline. Does that make sense? This is replacing that 1 hour in the classroom throughout the school year that we don't get. Anybody got questions about that? Now on the very bottom, we covered some fitness things, okay? So for example, I looked at common boo-boos, I call them boo-boos, from last year. Coach, that's a boo-boo, right? So coach, my ankle hurts. Coach, my knees hurt. Coach, my hips hurt, okay? Very common in football. And I will be honest with you. Do you want to know how to prevent your ankles, your knees, and your hips hurting? Strengthen them. Stop sitting in a chair all summer long and do something with your life, right? So, sorry, that may have been a little blunt, but that's me, okay? So again, we posted videos on, you can literally come in here, watch these videos. These are professional videos from professional doctors that are telling you, hey, this is how you rehab, or this is how you prevent this injury. Those of you that's got some hip flexor issues, watch the hip flexor video. Work through these next month and a half or so. Do those exercises 3 times a week. Come out, you'll find you're gonna be a lot better off. I have knee pain. I am a knee pain expert. I've had my ACL, MCL, and meniscus replaced in, well, both knees, but only ACL and MCL in both knees, okay? So I know all about knee pain. 10 exercises to increase your knee strength. These are the exact same exercises they had me do after surgery to rehab. It's good information. This one, I'm big on this. Players last year will tell you I talk about hydration a lot. Players from the clinic will tell you I talk about hydration a lot, okay? How much do I need to drink, coach? Okay, well this is easy. Who in here weighs about 140 pounds? Okay, Brody, stand up. Brody is a 140-pound athlete who needs to drink at least 9 8-ounce glasses of water. You need to drink 70 ounces of water a day. That's on a day where you're not performing at a high level, meaning coming to my practice. Everybody understand that? Does anybody have any idea how many ounces 70 ounces of water is? Look right beside it, I'll give you a clue. Instead of going to the store and buying a 2-liter bottle of soda, drink 2 liters of water every day. Okay? Sit down. Thank you, Brody. All right? Hydration is very important. You don't want to pull muscles. You don't want to be sore. You don't want to cramp. You don't want to have boo-boos and owies. Drink water. Okay? It does work. All right? So I'm a big proponent of health. Proper nutrition. Again, parents, I want you to know what I support for your kids, what I try to advocate for. Notice what's at the top of the pyramid. Sleep. Now, I know, again, I told you I creep on y'all social media athletes. So I know you ain't getting 8 hours of sleep when you got school in the morning and you made a post at midnight or 1 o'clock. Right?
Busted.
Yeah, coach is creeping, just know, all right? So again, that's not my lane. I might drop that nugget to your parents as we walk by, like, hey, I saw Johnny posted last night on Facebook at 2 o'clock in the morning. That was a funny video. That's how I'm gonna dime you out, athletes. Okay? That's how that's gonna happen. All right? But again, water, lean proteins, fruits, veggies, grains, carbs, unsaturated fats, supplements are on here. But again, it's only after consultation. So again, talk to your parents, talk to your doctors. Most of you, the only thing you may or may not need is a multivitamin at best. Most of you at your age don't need anything. Okay? So this is Google Classroom as a whole. Any questions on Google Classroom? All right. Now what you're going to start seeing in Google Classroom is that I can create assignments, questions, and post material. Everything you see in there is posted under material. But I will be communicating with athletes in here, right? And so, for example, the first question that you can expect me to post in there is, what are your goals for the season? Simple question, okay? Athletes, again, this is not something that is mandatory, but this is something that is highly encouraged, okay? So why do you think it would be beneficial for the coaches to know what your goals are for the season? Anybody?
Help you get there.
Leviticus. So we can help you reach them, not so I can reach them, right? But so I can come alongside you and help you reach them. If I know you're working towards a specific goal, I can kind of help you get there. Or maybe, parents, let me ask you this. Any parents in here ever set a goal that was maybe a little bit not reasonable? Mm-hmm. And then you couldn't obtain it, and you've got that crushing feeling. Wouldn't it have been great to have somebody come alongside you and say, hey, that's a great goal, right? But let's hit some road marks along the way. Let's put a couple of tick marks in here that we can accomplish to keep us going towards that goal, because it might take us longer than 6 months to get there. Does that make sense? So that's what coaches are here for. That's what we're trying to do, okay? Again, pastor's going to use this word a lot within the Eagles, and I completely believe it. It's called a discipleship type thing, right? And that's kind of my leadership style, right? I'm going to come alongside you, and I'm going to help you, I'm going to guide you, I'm going to mentor you, I'm going to work with you, I'm going to push you, all right? Encourage you. I'm going to laugh with you. I won't cry with you because I don't cry. I'm just kidding. But seriously, that's kind of what we're here for, okay? We're here to try to provide a godly male role model to your kids, for lack of a better term, okay? And play some football and show them how football helps prepare them for life, because it really does. Okay. All right, we're just about done. Let's see. Anybody have any questions on the schedule? None. Everybody found the schedule? John. So the schedule is on Facebook. I think we posted it in GroupMe. Not sure if we've posted it in GroupMe yet. If not, I will throw it up in GroupMe. Okay.
It's been a while.
Yes, the JV schedule's on Facebook too, okay? Thank you for that segue. Okay, so I absolutely do my best to communicate. On the Facebook page, I try to post a lot of updates because I feel like that's a good place, but I will primarily post information in 2 places, Facebook and GroupMe, okay? Typically, I'll put it in the parents GroupMe. So for all the new parents, we do have 2 GroupMes. We have a GroupMe that the parents are in along with the athletes, all right? And then we have a shenanigans page, right? The shenanigans page is so after a game, you don't get the 27,000 notifications about, did you see so-and-so get tripped up by the turf monster, where'd he go, Will Crane, okay? But either way, so we have 2 different pages. Now the shenanigans page is monitored, pastor's in it, I'm in it, there's a couple other adults that are in it, so we do have oversight and know what's going on, but we give that to the athletes for all those funny ha-ha things, and we can not have to have our phone ding at us, Does that make sense? So if you are not in a group me, if you are a new parent and you're not on the football group me, before you leave here, please see myself. Can I put you out there? Miss Jen, or Mr. Raps, any one of the three of us, and we'll make sure we get you added. So that's where the information is going to be. I try to be very user friendly, but when we get like 40 athletes with 40 sets of parents, and then like trying to get the information, it's just easier for me to say, here's where the information is, please go get it. Does that kind of make sense? Again, I'm always easy to reach via Facebook Messenger or direct text message. I am trying to do better. So in this setting for my wife, I will put this out there. I am really, really trying to shut football off at 8:30 p.m. I don't do so good at that. So if you message me, I am going to try not to answer you. I very well may, and then I'll get yelled at still. But just know if I don't answer you, now if it's an emergency, of course I will answer you. If it's something pressing, I will definitely answer you. But if it's like, something, what color the uniform is going to be this year, that's a tomorrow thing. Okay. Any questions on that? All right. So the last thing I wanted to cover with everybody in here, I've got about 12 minutes before we need to go kick off a game, is the player contract. Now I sent this to the football board before I did this, and I will tell you the premise behind this. So when I went to college, I got recruited. I went to college, I showed up my freshman year. We did in-processing. In-processing happened right around mid-June, and part of my in-processing was to sign a player's contract, okay? Now, in that player's contract, it outlined certain things. For example, my academic responsibilities. My scholarship would be gone if my academics fell below a certain area, right? In college, that contract also outlined my game responsibilities. My scholarship would be gone if I didn't attend X number of practices, if I did this, if I did that, right? So these things are common. I believe that having everything's clear and concise and out front makes life better for everyone, so I put down some things. I will not read this verbatim. I will let you know that everything I did in here is based on scripture as far as that goes. However, if we have someone who's a non-believer in here, I am going to model Christ, okay? I will definitely share my beliefs with you. Like, that's what you can expect from me, okay? I'm just going to be honest. I am going to share my beliefs with you. I'm going to talk to you about all the great things that God has done in my life and done for me and walked me through and helped me through, because why wouldn't I want to share that with young men? And so we're going to talk about that. But if you say, okay, the scriptural thing is really not for me, I don't get behind that, well, I promise you, if you model these characters, at the very least, you will have an upstanding young man in today's society.
That's right.
Okay, at the very least. So let's talk about a few things. Character, right? What do I mean by that? Okay, we don't leave it at home. As soon as we step on the field, bottom line, things are going to happen: win, losses, injuries, benching, championships, all kinds of different things. We're not void of emotion. Okay, I understand that. We feel upset or frustrated, but we need to strive to have a heavenly perspective. What does that mean? Sum up, very simple: self-control. Very simple, right? Now, I do want to address one thing that was kind of brought to me in the off-season. I'm very glad it was brought to me in the off-season. I had a meeting with some of the players and talking to them and kind of said, hey, talk to me about questions, concerns, comments, gripes, moans, groans. And they said, Coach, why can't we celebrate? Coach, why can't we celebrate? Okay? And I thought that was a great question. And I'm going to put it to you like this. You absolutely can. Okay? You absolutely can. If you see me on the sidelines, go back and watch any of those videos. When players do great things, I'm excited. When players don't do great things, I'm excited. On the other way. Okay? But we're emotional beings. We were created to be that way, and we can celebrate. You can celebrate an achievement. You can be happy for someone who scores their first touchdown. You can do that stuff. So let's talk about, very briefly, what is celebration? Well, simply put, celebration is done off the field with your teammates. Fair enough? That is celebration. Taunting, unsportsmanlike, is done on the field in the face of the other team. Okay? Celebration, all for it. Unsportsmanlike, not having it. Okay? So what don't we do? Pretty much anything you see on Sunday. Okay? If it's done in an NFL game, we're not pulling cell phones out of our pants and calling mom. We're not signing balls in the end zone. We're not waving goodbye to people when we're running down the sidelines. We're not doing any of that. You want to score a touchdown? I hope you do. Come over to the sidelines, high five your buddies, chest bump somebody, scream, shout, hoorah. There's going to be a sideline award because I believe in those things. I have a sideline award coming up. We will have a sideline award. You come over, host that sideline award, and then drink some water and get right back on the field, do something else great. Okay? That's celebration. Okay? Crowd, parents, please celebrate the successes of your children, right? Within reason. Don't knock the fence over. Don't Tennessee pull down goalpost. All right? Within reason. Okay? So I think that that's very important. So can we celebrate athletes? Can you celebrate? Yes, you can absolutely celebrate with your team. Okay? If you're standing in the 50-yard line and it's just you and it's all about you, that is not a celebration. Does that make sense? Okay. All right. Academics. Please be clear on this. Okay? All athletes, this is what I'm going to read. All athletes are expected to perform in their studies as well as on the field. Coaches will support the athletes, school, teachers, parents, and emphasizing the importance of academics. Should an academic concern arise, the coaching staff will work to develop an agreed upon plan to get the athlete back on track. This may result in an impacted playing time. Parents, specifically talking to you, if your athlete needs motivation because they're so locked in on football that they're not locked in on school, please come tell a coach. And I will help them get locked in on school so they can be more locked in on football. Okay? Now, if that means I have to tell them you're not coming to practice tomorrow because you're going to sit at home and do schoolwork, or you know what, you can't sit at home and do schoolwork, fine, you're going to come sit with coach and do schoolwork, I can do that too. Okay? As long as parents are okay with it, I'm here to support you. You tell me what you need, I'm here to support it. Okay? But academics, absolutely very, very important. And I really, really emphasize that. So athletes, if you were in a public school, do you know that you have to have a D or above to play? Most public schools. Most private schools, it's C or above to play. College, it's C or above to play. Okay? I don't have a grade letter because we're homeschool, and if I asked your parents for a grade letter, they'd probably get really upset with me. Okay? So as soon as one of your parents comes and says, so-and-so's not doing so hot, they're behind in their studies, they're behind in this, they're behind in that, okay, it will impact your field time. All right? Because academics is way more important than playing football. All right, this is important. Practice attendance. All right, missed practices, games, team functions. Athletes are encouraged to attend all practices, games, and team functions as part of developing and displaying dedication and commitment to the activity in which they wish to participate. The athlete should contact the head coach prior to missing, or parent, athlete or parent, missing or being tardy to practices, games, and team functions for emergency situation. Blah, 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 blah. Absences or tardies will be classified as unexcused. Bottom line up front, if you're late and you don't call me or text me, you're late, that's an unexcused. Fair enough? Now, the next line talks about emergencies. Sometimes things happen, and I'm not the first one who needs to get a phone call or a text message, right? And I get that. So I will make sure that I have the full details before any decisions are made. Consequences for unexcused absences from practice, games, and team functions will be at the discretion of the head coach. But here's some right off the bat. One unexcused missed practice will result in a minimum of 1 quarter suspension from the upcoming game. Okay? You miss a practice during the week, you won't play a quarter. You miss 2 practices during that week, and you're looking at a full game. Okay? How many practices do we get a week when we're in the season, players? 3. You missed 2 of them, how many did you make?
1.
Are you ready for the game? No, you're not. That's why that's in there. Okay. Let's look at bottom line on here. I will have this available for all of you, by the way. It's for referral review, and I don't expect you just to get blasted and then that'd be the end of it. So look at the last sentence with me right here at there. There will not be any team practices held on Wednesdays or any mandatory team events held on Sundays. Please notice the word mandatory. So we did start last year having some film breakdown on Sundays. What those are is we usually do a devotional, have some food, and watch some football and talk about what we did wrong, what we did better, prepare for the next week. Okay, that's what our Sunday afternoon looks like. Those will never be mandatory. Okay, that Sunday will never be mandatory. So please know that does not count against anything. Off-season practices, that's what we're in right now. Practices held during the off-season will not be mandatory, nor will they be a prerequisite for participation or membership on the team. While rewards and incentives may be used to encourage attendance, participation will not be made mandatory. A good example of this is, who knows there's a work day tomorrow? Wow. Okay, so here at the church is a work day tomorrow. Behind all these lovely black curtains is a big stage and lots of work that needs to be done. So that way this can be prepared for a new floor for the volleyball and the basketball team. Now, those of you that have been up here, I think this is our 4th or 5th work day. Not really sure. Third work day. Okay, they all blur together. Those of you that have been up here, you may have seen me post in the group me a while ago. Some of you have an excused absence from a conditioning, right? Who saw that? Yeah, Will's like, I saw it, because he's one of the ones who got the excused absence, right? That's what I mean by incentives. So again, you come up tomorrow, you help here at a work day, you donate some time on a Saturday. That translates to maybe you don't have to do a conditioning one day during the year, okay? All right. Behavior, I'm not really going to go crazy on this one. Bottom line up front, we have rules, follow the rules, treat the coaches, players, officials, everyone with respect. We're not going to have any of that. Please note C, players will not curse or swear on or off the field. Players must maintain a respectful and Christ-like image on the field and in the community. When we're wearing an Eagles attire, we are representing Eagles. Eagles is a Christian-based homeschool community, right? So if I'm wearing Eagles and I'm acting crazy, someone can then deduce that that's what Christians are like, right? And that's what we're trying to avoid. So that's kind of why that's in there. Treat all the equipment with care. All right, Miss Jen likes G. This was her favorite one. Players will be responsible for ensuring trash, equipment, and personal items are not left after practice or games. And there is an immediate penalty. The team will receive correction of 5 up downs per item left. Now last year there were some games where we had like 10 items, right? Somebody quick math. 5 per, 10 items, how many are we doing? 50. Who's doing them? The team. Why is the team doing them?
It's good for them.
Well, that's true. Accountability, right? Am I my brother's keeper?
Yes.
Yes. So, if my brother is really excited or really tired or just really out of it, and they're about to make a mistake, right? Should I not have the courage and the love for that person to say, whoa, come back here, right? We're about to mess something up, okay? So that's what I'm trying to encourage there. So please be aware of that. All right, we're gonna get through here. Players, pay attention to this. Parents, please pay attention to this. All right, uniform codes. We will have a uniform code, okay? No cutoff or modified jerseys. Approved protective gear only. What that means is if one of the coaches looks at your pads and they're like, not really pads, you may not play, okay? You need to have the right equipment. Your knee pads must cover the knees. That's a high school rule. You can't play in the game if that's not there. You will not have any jewelry or watches on, okay? That includes necklaces. Somebody read the 5th one for me.
Hats.
Real loud, Sam.
No hats, other than the Eagle team's hats. They are allowed during warm-ups or games.
No hats, okay? So what does that mean? Spring practice? No, I don't really care about spring practice. But when we get into fall practices, you can wear an Eagles ball cap if we're playing on a Thursday and we've got shorts and a shirt on. We're not wearing helmets or pads. You can wear an Eagles hat, or you can just let the hair flow, okay? When you show up to a game, we're not gonna have 50 different hats out there on the field while we're doing warm-ups looking all kind of crazy. We can have an Eagles ball cap on, or we can just let it all flow. Brody, I like it, man. It looks good. Okay? So, just understand, no sunglasses, headphones, or earbuds allowed during warm-ups or games. A shirt will be worn under the pads and needs to be royal blue, white, or black. Okay? The shirt will be tucked in. That's because I don't want you getting tackled by your shirt. Socks, tights, or accessories will be royal blue or white. Okay? Sorry, I've been in the military for 20 years. Okay, there's just some things I can't get away from. Now, there are exceptions to that rule. For example, if we have like Breast Cancer Awareness Month in October or something like that, then we can come and say, hey coach, I would like to wear pink socks for this game. I'm all about it, right? During that time frame. So keep that in mind. Towels. Towels, towels, towels. You're welcome. I'm doing this for you all, okay? Because last year, the #1 thing left behind was towels, right? So not everyone on the field needs a towel. Fair enough? So if you're gonna have a towel, you need to ask one of the coaches, and we will tell you whether or not you can have a towel, okay? Because not everybody needs a towel, okay? You can have it on the sideline, for sure, right? You just can't have it on the field. Practice, pretty much the same things. No hats at practice once we start the fall practices. That includes during the warm-up time. Players will not be shirtless, so you're not gonna come pull your pads off, pull your sweaty shirt off and walk around the parking lot. It's not gonna happen. Let's see. Players' cleats, gloves, mouth guards may be multicolored but not contain any offensive image or language, and that's because I was at Academy the other day, and they got some really crazy stuff out there, right? So we're not gonna do any of that, okay? All right, uniform violations. I like physical training. So we'll just do some extra physical training, okay? All right, social media, we're just about done. Social media and cell phones. I've already told you that I creep on all of y'all, right? Okay. Each athlete needs to be aware of the dangers of social media, and this is very, very real, okay? Athletes are expected to represent Christ, represent the organization, right? Online. Anything an athlete posts, comments, or shares on the internet is accessible to everyone. Oh, and by the way, once you hit enter, you can't get it back. It's gone, okay? So you need to keep that in mind. So make sure that what you're sharing, what you're viewing, what you're doing is decent stuff, okay? And there's a lot of pitfalls out there in social media. That's why a lot of your parents don't want you on it. And there's a lot of grown-ups that have trouble with that. I'm talking from the military side. We get all the time issues there. So social media is a very big thing. So if you're on it, make sure that the stuff that you're liking, that you're posting, that it's on the upside, okay? All right. ABCs for Eagles football. Again, I make life easy for you. Plan to be at practice every day. Plan ahead with appointments so that practice isn't missed. Plan ahead that all football equipment and uniforms are with you. Being on time. I won't read through all that. You guys have got it. Now, I will say this, all right? So spring practice, I know we've got soccer still going on. I got a couple out for that. We got baseball going on. I got a couple out for that. With those kind of things, you have a commitment to that sport, right? Please honor those commitments. I encourage that. In the fall, when it's football, please honor that commitment. I encourage that. Does that make sense? Okay, so I'm asking for the same on both sides. Some of you I know have stuff that you do. Peter, I think you're beta club, right? And so every once in a while you got something you got to go do for that. Just talk ahead, right? We can make plans. That's so coach has a plan for you being gone that day. Fair enough? Everybody kind of understand? All right, any questions? Now, what you'll find is I'm going to have each player read this with their parent, go over it, and then bring me a signed copy of it when fall practice starts. And I will have a list of every player who brings it. And if there's any questions or concerns, please address them with me. Okay, I'm perfectly okay with that. I would love to have a good discussion about what does this mean, or I don't understand this, or does this mean that, okay? That's perfectly okay. All right, any questions about that?
Coach,
Yes, sir.
you mentioned protective equipment a couple times, and just, is there a place where you lay out exactly what each player needs?
No, sir, I haven't done that yet, but I absolutely can. So right now, let's do this. Players, coaches, will you take the players down to the field, get them warmed up a little bit, and get that flag football game started? You gotta stay. Or you gotta hand your phone off, one of the two.
I think it's recorded if you want to.
Okay, so while they transition out, so Eagles at this point doesn't have equipment for everybody. We don't have helmets and shoulder pads and all that to issue. What we do is we normally order the uniforms. That's something that Pastor Kari was talking about. We do things earlier. So that's why registration is important, so we can get people registered. We know how many we have, what we're gonna need, and then get sizing done. When we do the pads, the uniforms for the games, typically they have sewn in pads. I think that's what we're going for again this year, is that right?
I think we're gonna go the other way.
We're
gonna
going the
go
other way?
covers,
Okay.
because we've had so many troubles with the fittings on the pads.
So if that's the case, then they'll need a girdle, right? It's a football girdle. It's got hip pads, thigh pads. There'll be some knee pads that may or may not be in the girdle. They need a male protective device, aka a cup, shoulder pads, helmet, and a mouth guard. And probably a spare mouth guard because they usually lose one. That is the absolute what they will need. Okay?
Did you say cleats?
And cleats. And cleats, yes.
We're responsible to purchase all that.
Yes, at this particular juncture, yes.
Now, there will be an opportunity to swap, like we've got players who've outgrown their gear, and so we kind of do like a family swap meet. That will be coming up, so there may be some opportunity to buy used gear from other athletes at that time.
And is there a certain standard for helmets?
Just white. No, I mean, to be honest with you, we don't have like a brand or anything that we stick to, as long as it fits. One key thing with helmets, if you buy a used helmet, please understand that helmets have wear out dates and they're only good for 10 years. So there should be a sticker on the back of the helmet with a date on it. That's the date it was manufactured. If that sticker is not there, don't buy it. That would be I would just tell you don't buy it. That's my advice, okay? But you look at that sticker on the back and it's good for 10 years. All right. Beyond that, just making sure it fits well. And if there's questions with fitting or something like that, I know that there's lots of it. Like even Academy has a little chart up that can show you exactly what the fit's supposed to look like. But if it's something that you have like specific questions and I can help with, you can reach out to me on social media and say, hey coach, are you available to take a look at this helmet with me? And I'll try to be available for that the best I can. I can't guarantee I would be available though. Okay. Practice stuff. So we do have practice jerseys this year. You won't have to get a practice jersey. We have team practice jerseys. Those are just sitting in my house in a box. Practice pants. We typically have the athletes in practice pants that's not their game pants for obvious reasons. We don't want to tear up the game pants. With that being said, white or black is acceptable. I prefer black. And that's because my wife asked me last year after buying white, why on earth did you buy white? Right? So I would say I would prefer black. And I think I have 3 or 4 pair of black still in tags, practice pants in a bag sitting at the house that I got this off season for next to nothing. So again, when we have that swap meet, they'll be there. That kind of stuff will be available. Okay. But yeah, unfortunately right now, that's why when we talk about sponsorships, and I wanted to send the athletes out to kind of talk about that, we kind of loaded on that earlier. I'm going to hit back on that. The goal is to get to where we can purchase equipment and issue equipment to athletes, but that's very expensive to have that kind of stuff in stock sitting there in the sizes that we're going to need. Those things are, we get the right sponsors and we can do that. Right? So parents, you know, that's one of the things that this off season I've really tried to do is drum up sponsors. We're doing okay. We could do better. Any businesses, churches that may want to sponsor, we can talk about that. Miss Jen has the sponsorship form. She can walk you through how that works. But it is really a blessing when they sponsor, because ideally, the more sponsors we get, the more we can alleviate costs from parents, right? That's like the long-term effect. Right now, because we have to pay for a field, that's where a lot of our sponsorship goes, because we have to rent Lions Field, and that's an endeavor. Sir.
So just to be clear in terms of what financial responsibility is now, we purchase the pads and the helmet, we purchase practice pants. Do we purchase a practice jersey?
No, I will provide that.
Okay, and then pants and jersey for the games, that'll be provided as well, or?
That's part of the
Sign-up fee.
That's part of the sign-up fee.
Okay.
Yeah. So part of that registration fee, that $375. Am I getting it right?
That's
I don't want to
correct.
be misquoted. But part of that $375 that goes for insurance, the dues, that helps cover some of our dues that we have to pay for the conference, and then our game uniforms. That's where that money all goes. So coming out to practice in the fall, that last week of June, the player would need a helmet, shoulder pads, some practice pants. I'll issue a jersey that day, and we should be off and running. Okay.
And Zenith does still have some on sale right now, not as much as they were.
Zenith has a great sale, and part of the reason I want to have the parents meeting early is like last year we came in a little bit late and we started trying to find pads like June, July, and every place was sold out, like flat out sold out. So now is the time. Facebook Marketplace is fine. Again, as long as you've got the date on that helmet. Shoulder pads are pretty good as long as they fit right. And again, fitment, we can talk about that offline if you want to. We don't talk about it right now, but I can help you get fit right. Pants are just like pants. You just want them to fit snug.
What's the place you mentioned that's having the sale?
Zenith.
Zenith.
Zenith?
Yes.
Yeah.
I can-
Look them up online.
Okay.
It's online sales.
XENITH.
Yep. Starts with an X. We can put that in the group me too again. I think that was in
Yep.
there. We'll throw that in there again. Yes, sir.
Can we bring his current equipment with the
Yes. Yeah, if parents have equipment from last year or whatever the case might be, and you want to come next week with that, I can carve a little time out. We'll take a look at it, and I'll be like, yep, that's still good. That's probably too small. I know my son, he needed some new stuff this year, so we got him some new stuff this year. So we'll have stuff too. So when we do the swap meet, and we'll try to get that date out on GroupMe to say, hey, this is the date. We're going to collaborate everything together. If you've got old stuff, come in here. New parents that don't want to spend, a bunch of money at Academy or a bunch of money at some other sporting goods store, come buy some used stuff.
We'll set that up soon. We might even be able to do it maybe into next week.
Yeah, probably
Potentially.
be good at the end of next week.
Coach, since we're on costs, I know the Augusta Eagles baseball, they didn't charge parents for the games, and I couldn't tell from your list, do parents pay for
Yes.
going to their own children's games?
Yes. So parents pay. Now, I'm glad you segue right there. Okay. So one of the things that the conference has talked about this year is, again, this is a fairly small organization. So speaking of things like cost, we have to rent a field, right? Again, I'm just telling you the exact truth. We have to rent a field and we have to pay refs right off the top. And that's a very expensive endeavor on a Friday night. Okay.
It's $1,850 just with the field and the refs each game.
Every game. We have 5 home games. Okay? So that's the cost to run Eagles for one season at the bare minimum with nothing else. That's no new pads, no new training equipment, none of that stuff you see out there on the field. So it is kind of an expensive endeavor. That's why we do that. Now, that being said, there are opportunities to serve, right? I told you I was a minister. So there are opportunities to serve. For example, chain gang, right? We will need chain gang for our, let me get this wrong, away games, right?
Away games.
Away games. Now, if you are a chain gang member, there's 3 of them, and you want to work the chains for that game, I can get you in for free. Okay? So that is the conference trying to incentivize volunteers, right? Those that may be helping with photography, those that are helping with videography, they're videotaping the game for us. They get in free. Coaches get in free. Those kind of things. But parents, siblings, so on, they have to pay. Okay. Fun times. I hate talking about money. It makes you uncomfortable. It's a good
My wife
question.
insisted I ask.
No, I'm glad you did. I would hate for you to get sideswiped and you're like, wait, what? So, ma'am.
I'm going away for money now.
Thank you. Okay, perfect.
What are the times for fall practices?
So we're gonna try to keep it as set as possible. We're gonna stick with 6 to 8. Okay. Now, as we get late in the season, that may get bumped a little bit because of daylight savings and less light in the evenings, and we are not blessed to have a field with lights on it yet. So we may bump that up a little bit, 5:30. I don't like to get closer to 5 because I know parents work, and that can be difficult to get the kids there on time. So, yes, ma'am.
What time will practices be in the summer? Are we gonna do morning practices?
No, unfortunately, like I said, I'm still in the Army, believe it or not. So I have a commitment to the Uncle Sam, And Uncle Sam is very nice to allow me to leave work in the afternoons to be able to get here and facilitate practice in the evenings, but I can't shift things around too much. So it'll be 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. once we start practices. The good news is down there, kind of in that valley, we're in some shade. It's not as hot as it was when we were up here on the softball field. So should be good. Sir, did you still have a question?
Yeah, I know we talked about uniformity with the football here and stuff. Do we have something for like helmet decals or?
Yes, I will provide the decals. So when you get a helmet, if you buy a used one and it's got a decal on there, do your best to take the decal off. And then acetone works really, really good to take that glue off, get it nice and clean, wash it up, let it dry. Your son will bring it to practice on that first day, and then hopefully within that first week, I'll get decals on everybody's helmet, okay? And then we do have our helmet stickers, which some of you maybe saw on Facebook that we're doing this year to, again, just kind of help the kids. You know, that's a sense of accomplishment, you know, so, yes, ma'am. Yes. Yes.
Okay, so start over.
You start over every year. Yep. No, you can leave that one on unless it's really bad. Like Ethan's maybe looks like a train wreck, so I may have to fix his. But if it still looks good, if it doesn't look really bad, it's not torn up, it's not coming off, we'll leave it on there. But all the old achievement stickers from before, those come off every year. Yeah.
Clean slate.
Sir.
Can we make sure that we end practices on time as well, so that we can get some reciprocity with making sure that we got them there on time, being able to count on being able to pick them up at a certain time?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Again, my wife will tell you, I am a stickler for time. So I will absolutely do my best. And in fact, my coaches would tell you if they're in here, I send out a practice schedule with to the minute, this is where we're gonna be at this time, and this is when we're gonna pray out, and this is when practice is concluded. And the alarms you hear on my phone is the spring practice schedule telling me when to transition. So that's the level of organization that I operate with, because when you deal with a group this size, you have to, in order to stay on track. And so, barring a rare catastrophe, you can plan that at 8 o'clock your athlete will be walking off the field.
That's great.
You still on 3 days at the end, when you start at the end of June, is it 3 days or are you upping it?
Those will be the 4 days. So when we start at the end of June, we'll practice Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. And then when we get into game season, which is, our first game is the 18th of August. I'm trying to, let's see. So our first game for varsity is the 18th of August. So that week will be our first 3 practice week, because we'll have game night Friday. Now this year, some of you that have been with us will notice that one of the biggest changes is to this schedule. This is our JV schedule. Our JV went from 4 games last year to 9 games this year, okay? JV has 9 games because I believe investing in JV is important. That's how you get a good varsity. So if all they do is sit around and, for lack of a better term, because this was used with me before, my kid was just a tackling dummy all season for the varsity players, that won't happen, okay? That's why Coach Shubin is the JV head coach. His job is to ensure that JV gets reps. And all of my coaches know that we will rep strength on strength, size on size, right? So I'm not gonna have a 90-pound JV player going up against a 185-pound varsity player who's been playing for 4 years in some tackling drill. That does nobody any good, right? So we will make sure, again, because my intent is that I was a small kid when I played JV, and if I'd have had to come out and tackle ginormous people, I would have quit, right? You have to feel successful, you have to feel like you can do it and gain that confidence. A lot of young men, they don't have that confidence at that age. So I'm not gonna set anybody up for failure that way, okay? So we do have more JV games. Now I will point out that our JV games are on Thursday nights primarily, unless you see like the Coastal game, that's a JV and varsity game, the PAC game, that's a doubleheader game, okay? The rest, they were split to Thursday nights, and part of that was practical. Some of the teams, for example, Victory, they're brand new. This is their first year. They don't have a ton of players. Some of their players are gonna play on JV, and then they're gonna play Friday night on varsity. That's how they have to make a team. If they had to play 2 games on Friday night, they don't have a very good competitive advantage in one of those games. Does that make sense? So they asked the conference to move the JV games to Thursday night so the kids could play Thursday, have a little bit of recovery time, and then come out and put on a better game on Friday night. Does that tax the parents? Yeah, a little bit, right? What I have planned to do, and I've kind of already started, is if I identify a player who is going to be on JV, and they're going to be a JV player, but may play varsity some, right? Because I can play them 6 quarters a week. So I can play 4 quarters in one game, 2 in another, 3 and 3, whatever I want to do, okay? But I got 6 quarters a week. So if I've got a player who can play some JV and may be playing some varsity as a backup somewhere, I am going to go to each parent specifically and ask them if that's something that they're willing and able to commit to. Because some of that means travel. You may have an away game on JV and then an away game on varsity that same week. And if that's too much travel, then I get it, right? And I'll have to make a decision on where that player goes that week. Does that make sense? But that's the type of communication that I hope to have. You know, that's just the realities of it. So please feel free to talk to me about those types of concerns because I'm aware of them. I will be as clear and candid as I can, but the sell that I've come across with constantly is we don't go to Coastal this year for varsity. That's a good thing, right?
Where is Coastal?
Coastal's in Savannah.
3 hours away.
Okay.
But we go to Lancaster, which is the same, just in a different direction. We've never been there before.
So does that mean we go to Coastal for JV?
There is a Coastal JV game. You're very good at catching that.
We
Yeah.
did Coastal for baseball, so I'm familiar with the drive.
That was one. So the 28th of September is at Coastal on JV. That's one that I'm actually I wasn't thrilled about, and Pastor Kari can tell you some of the struggles that I had with putting this schedule together. Like this was like draft number 5 or 6 and coordinating with all these different teams to get this to go. But so you'll notice that, let's see here, I got it open a bunch of times. So at Coastal on the 28th of September, and then the 29th of September, we have Orangeburg at home. I'm gonna tell you, your JV players are gonna get playing time in Orangeburg, but that's a home game. So that's the good news. You're gonna drive down to Coastal Thursday night, you're gonna get back late. I'm very, very sorry. And then Friday, unless you say, no, my athlete won't be there, I absolutely know for a fact right now, lots of JV will play in the Orangeburg game. Probably the whole second half, okay? So that's kind of one of those situations where we just need to communicate. Varsity, if you didn't notice, I tried to make it kind of stand out. We do have a Saturday game, okay? That's a Saturday, that's the Lancaster one. That game is set for an afternoon kickoff. I think we're talking about the 1 o'clock time frame. Reason we're doing that is because of church on Sundays. We wanted to give us time to be able to drive out there, play the game, get home, and still be able to make our services Sunday morning. But that's the only time that team could get us on their schedule due to their scheduling conflicts. And so that's kind of how that worked. We took a Saturday game, and we have to play that game because they're a conference team. So that's kind of where that one's at. Okay. These are all very, very good questions. Any others?
How does JV work then, since their games will be on Thursday? They will just go play their game instead of coming to practice, and then what will they do? They'll go be with their team on Friday?
Absolutely. As long as you're able to have them there, and if we gotta work on carpooling, I would love that to be a great opportunity. Looking at the registration, there's lots of us that live generally in the same areas. And so, you know, if it was like, hey, can somebody get my kid to the varsity game on Friday? That would be cool. I would think that as the family that we are and strive to be, we would try to get that. And I know me, even as the head, my wife will tell you, I'm like, babe, can you go do this? And then she's kind of like the unofficial team mom that kind of does that. Miss Faulkner does the same thing. She's got an 87-pack van. So, but seriously, we try to do that. Again, some of the athletes may be playing. So the question would be, is if they're dressing. And that's what I'm going to tell them. So as the season kind of goes on, some kids, and I'll just be honest, right? In football, some kids look really, really good right now. And then I put pads on them, and they're maybe not the same athlete, right? So I can't really make any, like, coach, is this guy gonna, I don't know yet. But as we get into the season, I'll be able to tell the athlete, like, hey, I would like you to dress Friday night. Are you gonna be able to do that? And I'll do that Monday or Tuesday. Is that fair enough?
JV, did they play at Limesville too?
No, right out here.
Oh, okay.
Yep. So our varsity will move our practice where it needs to be moved, to be determined. JV will play right down here on the field. And varsity is going to try our best to cut practice a little short that day and support that. That's why I'm really trying to do a lot of this spring stuff and the Google Classroom stuff, is so that way, you know, a lot of times in practices, what slows us down is having to try to explain something that as a coach, you're like, this is such an easy concept. Why don't we know this? And then you get bogged down and you're not accomplishing your task. So trying to get some of those foundational things established ahead of time will help. Great question. I thought I had another one. So yeah, JV home games right down the hill. Bring your lawn chairs. It's a beautiful setting. Gonna be a little bit warm, but it'll be a beautiful setting. I think, well, we'll talk about that later. Which side's gonna be home and which is away. So we'll talk about that. But it'll be a good time. Good games. Any other questions? Ma'am.
The May 5-on-5 tournament, are they just doing flag football, or what are we?
100% flag football,
Okay.
right? So shorts, t-shirts, flags,
Cleats.
just like what they're doing now, cleats. I know, I will tell you, when I sat down with the Victory coach, because it's their first year, they are really trying to get buy-in from the community, right? So they've already told me that that's their first community buy-in effort. So they're trying to flood our field with black and gold out there rooting for all their new football players, right? So I would hate for my Eagles to feel like, where's my fan base? You know, it should be a fun time, and it won't be a full game type thing. We're gonna shorten. It's probably gonna be 10-minute quarters, running clock the whole time. Should be hopefully high scoring because it's pretty much all passing. But it should be kind of a fun back and forth athletic time. So I'm excited about that. It'll be a good one. Yeah. Any other questions? Sir.
I've got a couple of things I need to say. Well, I just
Okay.
wanted to catch you.
If there's no other questions, I'm gonna step down and let Pastor Kari have it. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you for your time.
So I was taking some notes, and there's just a few things I wanted to hit with y'all before we got out here. First of all, when you signed up, you noticed there were 3 forms that you were supposed to upload to the page, right? There's a homeschool intent, there's a physical, right? Sports physical, and there was one more. I can't remember what the third one is. Ma'am? Birth certificate, that's what it was. Even though you've finished registering, you can go back and add those. Please do that versus emailing them to me. If it won't work, then I'll go with email, but I would much rather you upload them to the page, okay? You need to have the sports physical done before the first day of the regular season practice, okay? You can go to your med nows, they'll do them for there if you can't get in your physician, but you have to have the sports physical. If you show up and coach don't have a sports physical, your player ain't practicing that day, okay?
Is there a time limit when it needs to be done? My kids have one done for track and field.
Okay, you should be good for the year then. If it was done for another sport in this calendar year, basically it has to have been done such that 1 year would not be at the end of practice or before the end of the season, right? So if it was in the spring, then or the winter, you're good to go. Good question. Sign-ups. The deadline for registration is May 1st. Okay, so if y'all know families that were here last year that aren't signed up yet, go talk to them. The reason for that is we've got to get these uniforms ordered soon, right? So we're looking at mid-May ordering uniforms. That's why the registration has to be done. Make sure that everybody knows that if you need to have the payment plan, right, there's a code, and it talks about it on the front cover of the registration, to put the code in at the end when you pay, and you'll only have to pay the $50 at the beginning, and then it increments after that in payments, okay? Talking about where the money goes. Like I said, $1,850 per game just for the field and the referees, right? Then on top of that, we have huddle, right? We have an annual fee for that, and several other things. So can't iterate enough. Sponsorship. That's the only way we're going to grow as a program. We are going to do concession at the games. Coaches actually worked out some reciprocity agreements with other sports organizations to run concession. Okay, so some of that load will be taken off, but we'll also have to do it. We're going to, and everyone participates. All right, all parents will end up volunteering, voluntolding. Mr. Berkey is going to basically have an assignment sheet. Your name's going to go on it, and that's your date. Now, if you can't do that date, then it's going to be incumbent upon you to swap around amongst yourselves as parents and work that out. We tried just doing volunteers last year, and we never could get enough people. So, you know, it's just one of the things. If you're going to be part of the program, you're going to be part of the program. But we'll get that out as quick as we can. When to talk to coach. If it's right before a game, don't talk to coach about stuff, right? Wait till after, or even better yet, the day after. We actually have an unofficial 24-hour soak rule, okay? So if something happens during the game, you're not happy about it, and you need to go talk to coach or somebody about it, soak on it for 24 hours, okay? Don't handle it after the game. Let the athletes enjoy what happened. Let them celebrate. We'll deal with that. If you have an issue, right, coach is very open, but also the committee. Sean wasn't here earlier. Miss Bonnie raised her hand. Josh in the back. Me, my wife Jen raised her hand, right? And then Alan Gay is not here, and his wife Carla, but you can catch any of us and you can talk to us about anything, okay? So just, we're open in that. AEDs. Eagle Sports is going to be purchasing, it looks like, 5 AEDs to defibrillators to share between the sports. Okay, and I want to really trump on something that Coach said. There is a significant trend of teenage boys dying from heart-related issues, especially in exertion, right? You can speculate on what it comes from. I've got my conspiracy list, but I will tell you this. A lot of these boys like to drink these Monster Energy drinks, and they drink a bunch of them, and then they get out here, right? It ain't even got to be supplements. Please, put them on water. Get them off this stuff. You could be saving their life. But it's become that significant that we're actually going to go out and buy defibrillators, right? It's a big deal. Take it seriously. The Eagle Award. So we have a series of awards, and Coach will talk about that through the year, like most valuable player, and you know these. Our biggest award is the Eagle Award. It is the Christian Character Award, right? And I really challenge Coach on this, and I want you to hear me. This is the award that whoever gets it, what you're really saying is, it's like Paul, right? Paul said to the churches, he said, imitate me. Right? Why? Because Paul was so great? No, because Paul imitated Christ, right? This is the idea behind the Eagles Award. Whoever gets the Eagles Award is who the coaches would say, you want to know what the character of Christ looks like? Imitate him, right? If we do not have someone that meets that definition for that year, we will not have an Eagles Award that year. It's that prestigious of an award, okay? So encourage your sons towards that. We will definitely be encouraging them towards that because that is our ultimate goal. We want to have fun. We want to play football, but we're growing boys into godly men, right? That's our ultimate goal, and that's really the mark of it. Jen, did I miss anything that you can think of? Anybody else? Josh, did you miss? Okay, sir, question? Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yes.
All of our friends and people who try to gain sponsorships that way.
Yes, we do. Are you on GroupMe? Okay.
Are you
Let's
on
make sure
Facebook?
anybody that's not on GroupMe, let's get on
It's on
GroupMe.
the Facebook football page, but I can give it to you right now tonight before you leave.
Yeah, but like I said, I encourage you, if you're not on GroupMe, don't leave here today without getting on GroupMe, because that is the primary way we communicate and send stuff out. But we'll get you that. The sponsorships rank in different dollar amounts. We've had some very good sponsors, some very high dollar sponsors, but we really need more sponsorship. Our goal, like we said, would be to be able to purchase equipment for all the players. We would love to get to the point where we could actually provide uniforms for all the players, right? The more sponsorships we get, the less comes out of the parents' pockets. So businesses are willing to do it, but you got to catch them early. If you're waiting until July, August, their sponsorship money is already gone, right? Really, sponsorships happens at the first of the year, but they're still doing it. We're still getting sponsors in now, so don't go off that. And the last thing I'll say is, if you know somebody who was here last year and you don't see them, go contact them and make sure they sign up, right? We got 9 families I know of that I'm surprised I hadn't seen sign up yet. And I'm sure they're just busy and things are going on. Homeschoolers, one of the things that's prevalent is y'all wait till the last minute about everything, right? Can't do that this year, right? We are running wide open from the very beginning. So get in, get early. It will be a much smoother year as we go through. All right, I'm done. Close out.
I got 2 alibis and then I'll pray us out. One thing I covered yesterday with your players, most of you know it rained, it was nasty, it was horrible. Rain does not stop me from practice. We're football players, and that's just the way that is. It won't stop a game. Lightning will, okay? However, if it is thunderstorming, I told your players yesterday, weather will not cancel the practice, okay? Weather will not cancel the practice. If we can't be on the field, I can take them in that youth room. The church has opened up that building for us. I can get in front of a whiteboard and I can walk through stuff in that youth room. And again, that helps me with time, right? So if it's like storming outside and you're wondering, you know, we're in July, August, you're like, man, are we gonna have practice today? Yes, okay? We are. We just will probably be inside, not outside. Again, that's if there's lightning. If it's raining, it's just raining. We're gonna be wet. That's just the way it is. I'll be wet with the boys. The last thing I will talk about very briefly is a way that helps Eagles with money is actually buying swag, okay? So there's 2 places off the bat I know you can buy swag. So I'm gonna plug them both. One, if you go on the Eagles website, it takes you to Squad Locker. That's the place. Squad Locker has swag out there. You can buy swag. A portion of what you buy goes to the Eagles. I have no idea what the percentage is.
I don't either.
No clue. But I do know that some of it comes. I do also know that there is people in our organization, like Miss Faulkner, who has a website who does the same thing, okay? And she donates to the Eagles. I don't know what your percentage is. Do you mind sharing?
So it's like 90% goes all the way to the Eagles. So I take 10% just because it does take time to create and put it up there and everything, but otherwise 90% goes straight to the Eagles.
And I've started buying stuff from her because Squad Locker doesn't do that. I'm just saying. And their prices are way higher. So either way. But that's an easy way. Like, I know I like to have swag. My wife likes to have swag. So that's one easy way that you can help support. Buy some swag. The money comes back to the Eagles anyway. But sponsorships. I always tell them, and like the kids, man, I love sending the kids. Send the kids. You know how hard it is to tell a teenage boy with their eyes so big, like, can I have some money so I can play some football, please? Like, tell them to say it like that, right? And then we'll get some money. So we'll just sponsorships. All right, with that being said, please, if you're not on the GroupMe, see somebody, get on the GroupMe. If you need the sponsorship information, please see Miss Jen. She'll get it to you tonight. Other than that, your boys are playing some flag football down the hill. I'm gonna get you out so you can catch the last little bit of it. Thank you for your time.
Yes.
I know everybody is busy. Please stay on GroupMe. We're going to still have the 5-on-5 game. We're going to have the swap meet coming up. Those are the next two big hits. Okay? So let's pray out and we will get on our way. Heavenly Father, we just thank you so very much for this opportunity to gather tonight. We thank you for the generosity of Pastor and the church and just allowing Eagles to operate here and to utilize these facilities. Lord, we thank you for each family that has decided to embrace the endeavor of being part of Eagles and in Eagles football specifically. I ask that you would just bless the athletes, keep them safe and without injury. Bless each family that's here and help us to have a prosperous season. Most importantly, that our prosperity is judged by how we glorify you and not by a win-loss record. I just thank you and praise you. It's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Thank you very much, all. Have a great night. I'm going to go watch some football.